We're introduced to the concept of superweapons pretty early on in Star Wars, with the Death Star in A New Hope, and then another Death Star in Return of the Jedi, and another Death Star in the Jedi Academy trilogy, and then a fourth, basically Death Star in Darksaber, and well, you get the idea. Superweapons are all over the place, but today I want to talk about what I think is the most powerful, or at least most important superweapon in galactic history in the Legends continuity, a space station called Centerpoint. When I say the most powerful here, I don't purely mean as the most overpowered thing in the galaxy. Pound for pound at least, that honor goes to the Sun Crusher, a fighter-sized superweapon able to blow up entire suns, which I don't actually think comes close to the innate destructive capabilities of Centerpoint overall, but which also has impenetrable armor. So if there is anything I would point to as maybe challenging my position here, it's the Sun Crusher. But as we'll talk about today, it's the offensive flexibility of Centerpoint paired with its ability to actually function as a creative force that puts it on the top of the pile for me. Centerpoint Station was an installation found in the Corellian system, but beyond just being in the Corellian system, it was even used to make the Corellian system. On top of being, in my objectively correct opinion, the most powerful superweapon, Centerpoint Station was also one of the oldest artifacts in the galaxy. It was created 100,000 years or more before the modern period of the galaxy by the Killiks, specifically the Thurad Hive, acting under the control of an incredibly powerful Force-using Forerunner species called the Celestials, specifically the brother and sister from the Mortis arc of the Clone Wars. The station was equipped with a powerful gravity-manipulating tractor beam, which was able to pull 5 planets together from throughout the galaxy, with the assistance of massive repulsors also installed on the planets themselves, bringing together the worlds which would come to be called Corellia, Draal, Salonia, and the twin worlds Talos and Tralis into orbit around the star Coral. Centerpoint itself remained in orbit around Coral as well, with Talos and Tralis effectively orbiting around it, faced by the tubular poles of the station, hence the name Centerpoint, at the center between Talos and Tralis, called the Two Brothers. The Celestials eventually disappeared from an active role in the galaxy and were replaced by the Rakatan Infinite Empire, whose rise and fall I've covered in a few videos before. Centerpoint was largely left inert as the new rulers of the system, a mix of primarily humans on Corellia, Talos and Tralis, and then Salonians and Draal on their eponymous worlds, began to take control and built their own new civilizations. Centerpoint itself was even colonized by various inhabitants, with the core, illuminated by a central sun-like glow point, coming to be called Hollow Town. Given that the core station had a 100-kilometer diameter with the full length of the station stretching to 350 kilometers, the population of its thousands of decks grew considerably over time, and in some instances people even began to live on the surface of the station. While Corellia was always suspected to have been artificially created with Centerpoint involved somehow, it remained a mystery up to even the time of the Empire exactly what the station could do or how the system was built. It was certainly an important part of Corellian culture, and it became the subject of a planned false flag attack by the Empire, where they planned to load a CR-90 Corvette with explosives and detonate it against Centerpoint, blaming the rebellion. This attempt was thwarted by the actual Rebel Alliance, but it wouldn't be the last time the installation was threatened by people for various reasons, claiming they would like this video and subscribe for more. When the Empire fell, Corellians played a significant role in the rebellion and were even represented in leadership councils in the Senate. But the Corellian system and large parts of the sector became independent under a leader called the Diktat, keeping an Imperial Defense Force commanded by Admiral Japhus within the Corellian system itself, but run by Imperial Grand Admiral Danita Pitta in the sector at large by about 2 years later. So for the 8 years after Endor, Corellia was more in the Imperial orbit still than in the New Republic directly. But by 12 ABY, the Imperial-affiliated leadership had been largely expelled, and Corellia formally joined the New Republic under an appointed Governor-General. Tensions between the various planets in the Corellian sector and the New Republic remained high, and there were several secessionist groups spread throughout the sector. Most important was the Sicorian Triad, a human, Draal, and Salonian who led the planet Sicoria. They began fomenting unrest in the rest of the sector by 18 ABY, propping up groups like the Human Supremacist Human League led by Han Solo's cousin Thrackan Sal Solo on Corellia itself. As these kinds of movements gained power and destabilized the political situation in the sector, Centerpoint fittingly lived up to its name and became the focal point of what would become known as the First Corellian Insurrection. So far, we've mostly just focused on Centerpoint's creative potential in forming the system, but this will be the first of many events showcasing its destructive power. Scientists loyal to the Triad had been researching the station and they managed to bring it back online, harnessing the destructive power of the tractor beam to destabilize and destroy a star in an uninhabited system designated only TD10036-EM-1271. The firing of the station also caused Glowpoint to flare, killing all the inhabitants in the firing chamber within Hollowtown unexpectedly. The Human League claimed responsibility for the firing of the station, or at least the destruction of the system, saying further systems would be destroyed if their demands were not met within 3.5 weeks. These demands included Corellia being recognized as independent from the New Republic, but also the New Republic deporting all Solonians and Draw from Corellia within that time frame. A second set of Centerpoint's capabilities were then used to reinforce the Human League's control. It was able to create a massive interdiction field around the Corellian sector, preventing both travel and communications into or out of the system, something which made the demands impossible to meet anyway, so Thraken really wasn't looking to play ball. While the interdiction field grew to encompass the whole Corellian sector, we don't actually know if that was the limit of what Centerpoint was able to do, or if that's just how it was used at the time. So the actual limit of Centerpoint's power could be significantly beyond that as well. But most importantly, this interdiction field made any conventional assault on the system to remove Thraken and the Human League impossible. Evacuation attempts were made on the next target, an occupied system this time called Thonta Zilbra, but they were incomplete by the time Centerpoint fired, destroying a second entire system with several planets, so take that, Death Stars. But before the third target, Bovo Yagin, could be destroyed, the station was disabled by Anakin Solo, Han and Leia's youngest son. He managed to activate Draal's planetary repulsor, the one mentioned earlier as helping move Draal into position. This was used to knock Centerpoint's hyperspace opening to its targeting system out, shutting the installation down. Unbeknownst to Anakin, this had also imprinted himself on the systems connecting the repulsors and Centerpoint, making it so that only he would be able to control it in the future. Simultaneous to the adventure of the Solo kids on Draal to activate the repulsor, a fleet of New Republic allies from Bakura were using their unique hyperwave inertial momentum stabilizers, or HIMS systems, which allowed them to jump deep in the Corellian system past the interdiction field, engaging the Corellian Defense Force and helping depose the Human League, but our focus is on Centerpoint itself rather than the whole conflict. Centerpoint remained inactive for almost the next decade. When the Yuuzhan Vong invaded in 25 ABY, Thraken saw Solo was back, and Corellia hoped to rearm Centerpoint, allowing them to use it as a weapon to defend Corellia and beat back the Yuuzhan Vong. Originally, the New Republic, which was cooperating with the Corellian government on this, hoped that the Yuuzhan Vong fleet could be baited to attacking Corellia as a gateway into the core. The station could then lock the fleet in place, and then the New Republic fleet could jump in with as many reinforcements as needed to destroy the Yuuzhan Vong armada in one place. But the Yuuzhan Vong had fed the New Republic false intelligence about their intended targets, and instead of attacking Corellia, they moved to Fondor. Not to be deterred, Thraken still wanted to fire the station at the fleet at Fondor, showing off another capability that Centerpoint had. It didn't just have to target large things like stations, it could wipe out ships in a significant area. But because of the events in the first Corellian insurrection, this still required the cooperation of Thraken's nephew, Anakin Solo. Anakin did agree to help reactivate the station, believing this was the best way to beat the Yuuzhan Vong, but he ultimately refused to fire it thanks to counsel from his brother Jason. Thraken went ahead anyways, to disastrous results. He fired the station, which did manage to destroy half of the Yuuzhan Vong armada at Fondor, but the majority of the allied Hapen fleet was also caught in the crossfire and destroyed alongside it, effectively knocking the Hapens out of the war as soon as they joined it. This misfire disabled the station once again, though it took weeks for the Yuuzhan Vong to learn this, so it still managed to act as a bit of a deterrent against further attacks into the core for a short time. Centerpoint's next and final time in the galactic spotlight came in 40 ABY, when the Corellian system, once again led by Thraken in a more official position as Minister for War and then President, planned to reactivate the station in an attempt to rebel against the Galactic Alliance, which had replaced the New Republic. Aside from Thraken's long-standing separatist stance for Corellia, Corellians were upset at having to contribute to the overall defense fleet and its budget in the Galactic Alliance instead of being allowed their own independent defense force along with all of the other benefits of Galactic Alliance membership. The Centerpoint installation was largely operational again, getting around the imprinting from the now-dead Anakin Solo through a room-sized computer constructed to believe it was the deceased boy, mimicking his brainwaves. A Jedi strike team consisting of Anakin's brother Jason and his cousin Ben Skywalker managed to infiltrate the station and disable it once again by convincing the facsimile Anakin that it wasn't the real Anakin, and showing it that Thraken was just using him. This did shut down Centerpoint for a bit, but it wasn't a full stop to the work that the Corellians were doing to reactivate it, and this new Corellian secessionist movement soon erupted into a full galactic war. The station was reactivated once again, recovering from Jason and Anakin's sabotage, but then it was captured by Galactic Alliance forces under Jason Solo. A rogue Corellian technician, angry over his wife being caught up in Solo's anti-Corellian raids on Coruscant, managed to gain control of the station and intended to fire it on the galactic capital, destroying it. A different technician, working with a task force put together by Luke Skywalker and the Jedi Coalition to destroy the station, had already managed to sabotage it in a new way, however. The coordinates of Coruscant 000 or 000 now referred to the location of Centerpoint itself, so when Centerpoint fired, the result was the final destruction of one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful artifacts. One Centerpoint may sound powerful enough, but now there are actually two of them. A second installation had been built alongside Centerpoint in the location of the Maw. The Maw was a maze of black holes, and this station, called Sinkhole Station, had been used to assemble the black holes the same way that Centerpoint had built the Corellian system. This station was a bit smaller, and we know less about it, but I assume the general capabilities would have been the same. Sinkhole and the Maw were actually built as a giant prison, used to trap an ancient, dangerous being called Abeloth, the bringer of chaos, who was also the quote-unquote mother to the son and daughter at bay. She was basically a being who was unleashed every so often in galactic history, causing chaos everywhere. And it was effectively chaos in the galaxy which caused her to be unleashed. Jason Solo's actions had filled Abeloth's chaos cycle meter, freeing her, and as she was freed, she destroyed Sinkhole as well, bringing us back down to 0 Centerpoints. So really, on top of the power, I think Centerpoint being this central to so many stories across the Legends timeline, from the Corellian trilogy, to the New Jedi Order series, to Legacy of the Force, and then Fate of the Jedi, where the Abeloth stuff happens, makes it the most important superweapon, or pair of superweapons, since it's technically Sinkhole Station that plays the bigger role in Fate of the Jedi. But even at that point, there's still a lot of people talking about Centerpoint because they suspect that it's the destruction of Centerpoint that actually unleashed Abeloth, until the Thurut Killik Hive corrects them on that point. Either way, that's going to do it for today though. Let me know what you think about my ratings in the comments, and whether you think a different superweapon deserves the top spot instead. Thank you for watching, special thanks to the channel members and patrons who make this channel possible, and to Marmar for editing this video.